This message is for all of you who are having to be isolated with your children in the house. I come to you from the bathroom. You may have noticed it's the one place you can go, at least for a few minutes, where nobody will come to look for you, even if they know you're in there. As long as the door is closed, they know not to bother you. So I figure I'd take this time to talk to you while you're in your place of solitude. I'm a mother. Of course, my daughter's a little older than yours, I suppose. But this could very well be a good time for you to get to know that little person that you've been raising for a few years. Perhaps all you know is wake them up in the morning, get them dressed, put some food in their stomach, put them on the school bus, and away they go until a few hours later, and you come back and you go get them and bring them back home and do the process all over again. But could it be the time to get to know them? And you can do that without them thinking it's an educational moment or a philosophical moment by just asking them questions. And I've learned there's a lot to be learned from little people because their wisdom has to do with how they see life at that moment. And they don't tell you any more than they know. There's some who have creative minds that will. But for the most part, they will answer your questions as honestly as they can, unless they're in trouble. And by the same token, we should give them the opportunity to ask us questions. Case in point, my daughter, when she was little, she was sitting at the table, and in front of her was a bowl of oranges and a glass of orange juice. So this was going to be my motherly educational moment. So I said, Allison, she was reading a book, and she looked up at me, and I said, where does orange juice come from? And she kind of looked at me, and then she looked down at her glass of orange juice, and then she looked up at me again and said, the grocery store. I couldn't argue with that, because that is exactly how I got that orange juice to that table. I didn't go out to an orange tree and pluck the oranges and squeeze them out into a glass and bring it back into the house and sit it on the table. I got it from the grocery store. She was correct. I had nothing else to say about that. In time, she learned that orange juice came from oranges, and best I can figure out, she didn't get that information from me. So I learned from her wisdom. That was wisdom. That was true. That was truth. She answered my question honestly. And by the same token, children ask us questions that they want honest answers to. And we have to do that. And then when we do that, then they learn eventually that they can ask us those questions and we will answer them. Case in point, my grandson, who is the child of my daughter, for those of you who hadn't figured that out, we were sitting in the car, and he was old enough to be sitting in the front seat with me with a seatbelt on. And we were just riding along, and out of nowhere, I could feel him look at me. And he looked at me without hesitation at all, thoughtfully. He had thought this out, and he knew he was going to ask me this question, and it was as fluid as pouring water out of a glass. He said, Grandma, have you ever had sex? So I figured the best thing to do right about then was to answer his question. And I said, yes, hoping and praying that he didn't want to know the who, what, where, when, and why. Fortunately, he didn't want to know the who, what, where, when, and why. It hadn't dawned on him that he would not be there had I not been able to answer his question. He was satisfied with that. We never said another thing about it. He is almost 20 years old now, and we have never addressed the subject anymore. I answered his question. There was nothing else he had to ask. My daughter answered my question. There was nothing else I had to ask. Don't you think some politicians could learn to do that? Just answer the question you asked them and not answer a question you didn't ask them. Otherwise, it'd be done. The conversation would be over. But I say that to say this. There's a verse in the Bible that says, train up a child in the way they should go. And when they're old, they'll remember it. Yeah, they will. They'll remember it. We'll remember it. And if you live long enough, they'll remind you that you trained them. Time to get out of the bathroom now. I'm done.